They broke into her apartment expecting a scared girl, but they found a Mafia boss waiting instead. A rival cartel thought they could use Era's abusive mother as the perfect bait to trap the city's most elusive crime lord. They were dead wrong. Dante Moretti didn't just walk into their trap. He brought hell with him. If you love dark romance, suspense, and protective mobsters who will burn the city down for an innocent girl, you need to hear this story. Picture this, a 19-year-old girl trapped in a fourth-floor apartment that smells of cheap whiskey, cold grease, and old regret. Her name is Era Voss. She has fresh bruises layered over older ones, a broken radiator hissing uselessly in the corner, and a mother in the next room who drinks until every wall feels unsafe. Across the street, a black luxury sedan sits under a dead street lamp. The man behind the wheel is not a hero. He is not gentle, not innocent, and not looking to be forgiven. But tonight, Dante Moretti watches that window one time too many, and something in him refuses to stay still. Inside the apartment, Sandra Voss keeps the television loud enough to drown out her own thoughts. Era has spent 19 years learning her mother's drinking the way other children learn songs, the slow evening kind, the restless midweek kind, and the Friday kind, when Sandra no longer needs a reason to become cruel. Tonight is Friday. Era lies on a thin mattress, staring at a tea-colored stain on the ceiling, no longer pretending it looks like a cloud or a bird or anything beautiful. It is just a stain. Her mother is just her mother. Then the recliner creaks in the living room, and Era's body goes completely still. She does not tense. Tension makes noise. Stillness is quieter, and Era learned young that quiet can sometimes keep you alive. Heavy footsteps cross the floorboards. 4 to the bathroom, 3 to the kitchen, 2 to her bedroom door. The handle turns. Sandra appears in the doorway, 51 years old and looking much older, swollen from alcohol and hollowed out by everything she refuses to face. Her gray blonde hair hangs in greasy tangles. She is still wearing the same stained sweatshirt from 2 days ago. Era waits for the first words, because the first words usually tell her how bad the night will be. Sandra tells her to get up. She needs cigarettes. It is past 1 in the morning, but Sandra says it as if the hour is Era's fault. She tells her to take $10 from her purse and go to the all-night gas station on Rector. The room is so cold Era can see her own breath when she pulls on her hoodie. Her bruised shoulder throbs where Sandra shoved her into the kitchen counter 2 nights earlier. Sandra sees the way Era moves, sees the yellowing mark along her jaw, and for half a second guilt flickers in her eyes. Then she looks away. Guilt is easier than change, and Sandra has always chosen easy. Era takes the money without speaking. Sandra warns her not to talk to anyone outside, which would almost be funny if it were not so sad. Never been outside. In the recliner, in the bottle, in the sudden silence before Sandra explodes. Era ties her sneakers, pockets the $10 bill, and leaves before her mother can change her mind. The stairwell smells like damp concrete and old smoke. Outside, the cold cuts through her hoodie, but she welcomes it. The cold is honest. It hurts, but it does not pretend to love her while doing it. The street is empty in the way bad neighborhoods sometimes are, not peaceful, just waiting. Era walks with her head down and her hands buried in her pockets, following cracks in the pavement she knows by memory. Out here, she can breathe without wondering if breathing too loudly will start a fight. The gas station lights bleach everything pale. She buys 2 packs of Marlboro Reds from a tired clerk who does not look at the bruise on her face. They exchange only the words they have to. He slides the cigarettes across the counter. She leaves with the little paper bag held tight in her fist. On the way back, half a block from her building, Era sees the black sedan. It sits across the street with its engine idling, polished and dark, too expensive for that block and too still to belong there. The windows are heavily tinted, but she can make out the shape of someone behind the wheel. Broad shoulders, unmoving hands, the kind of stillness that does not come from fear. Era keeps walking, but every part of her notices him. Living with Sandra has sharpened her instincts. She knows the difference between a parked car and a waiting car. This one is waiting. She returns to the apartment, drops the cigarettes on the counter, and goes back to her room. Sandra barely thanks her. The television continues to shout through the walls until nearly 3 in the morning, and Era lies awake, thinking about the sedan. For 4 days it does not come back. Life folds itself into its usual shape. Era works 12-hour shifts at the laundromat, folding strangers' clean clothes while her own sleeves hide bruises. She buys $43 worth of groceries and stretches them into meals. Then Sandra hits her again, and when the black sedan returns, Ara understands that whatever is coming has already started. It happens on a miserable Thursday night. Ara is eating dry cereal because there is nothing else quick enough to make, and Ara knows better than to search for logic in it. Her mother's rages have never needed logic. They only need momentum. The first slap lands across Ara's cheekbone. The second catches her jaw and sends pain flashing up her skull. Ara does not cry. Crying makes Sandra louder. Instead, she shuts down, leaving her body in the room, while her mind steps back to someplace quiet and unreachable. It is the only shelter she owns. When Sandra finally runs out of rage, she collapses into the recliner and reaches for the remote as if nothing has happened. Era cleans herself at the kitchen sink. By bedtime, her face has turned purple. By morning, the bruise has spread like storm clouds under her skin. She goes to work with her hair pulled forward. Most people do not look closely, because looking closely would mean having to care. On Saturday, she walks home with groceries bought from extra shifts and sees the black sedan again. Same place, same idling engine. This time, Era stops for one full second and looks straight at it. The tinted window reflects the dirty street back at her, but she feels the man watching from behind it. He does not roll the window down. He does not wave. He only sits there, silent and steady, as if he has all the time in the world. Era's grip tightens around the grocery bags. Men in cars like that do not come to neighborhoods like hers unless they are buying something, selling something, hunting someone, or being hunted themselves. She goes inside with her pulse beating hard in her throat. That night, while Sandra's television blares through the wall, Ara keeps seeing the dark shape of him behind the glass. Tuesday is the night everything breaks open. Sandra has been drinking since noon, and the apartment smells sour with liquor and sweat. Era stays in her room, trying to be invisible. Then Sandra starts screaming into the phone. Her voice fills every corner of the apartment. "You don't know what she's like," Sandra shouts. "She has been a problem since the day she was born." Era presses her back against the wall and closes her eyes. It is one thing to be hurt by the person who raised you. It is another to hear that person explain your pain as if you caused it by existing. The call ends with the phone slamming down. Footsteps pound down the hallway. Era's door flies open without a knock. Sandra stands there with a glass in her hand, and that glassy, dangerous look in her eyes. She accuses Era of calling Aunt Carol. Era says she has not spoken to her aunt in 3 months, but Sandra is already past reason. "Then why did she ask if you were okay?" Sandra snaps. Era swears she did not tell anyone anything. Sandra hurls the glass. It shatters against the wall inches from Era's head, spraying cheap liquor and sharp pieces across the floor. Sandra storms into the room. Era moves fast, putting the bed between them. Furniture can buy seconds. Seconds matter. She begs Sandra to check her phone, her call history, anything. For one breath, doubt crosses Sandra's face, but alcohol twists it into something uglier. She circles the bed. Era bolts for the door and almost makes it before Sandra catches her arm. The yank sends Era into the doorframe so hard her vision flashes white. Then Sandra's hand comes down. Era turns her head, but the blow still catches her temple. She grips the doorframe with both hands and refuses to fall. The rage ends as suddenly as it began. Sandra steps back, breathing hard, one hand over her mouth. She stares at Era as if someone else did it, as if the violence arrived from outside and used her hands without permission. But Ara knows better. She has watched that lie save Sandra from herself too many times. "Get out of my face," Sandra mutters. Era retreats to the bathroom, locks the door and presses a wet cloth to her temple. Under the buzzing fluorescent light, her reflection looks gray-green and bruised. She wants to cry. She does not. Crying would only make the room feel smaller. Sleep never comes. Era lies awake, thinking in small practical pieces: survive the night, go to work, keep the cash hidden, buy food, act normal. At 4 a.m, she thinks again of the black sedan and the man who never moves. The real shock comes the next evening. 2 police cars sit outside her building, lights flashing blue and red across the cracked windows. Neighbors cluster on the sidewalk, pretending not to stare while staring at everything. Era's first thought is her mother. Her second thought is also her mother. Whatever happened, Sandra is almost always at the center of it. Mrs. Okafor, who usually ignores Era but knows everyone's business, leans close and whispers that the police took Sandra. Sandra had gotten into a screaming match with an officer down on the corner. When he told her to move along, she punched him. Era stands very still, absorbing the words. Then she thanks Mrs. Okafor and climbs the stairs. The apartment is empty. The television is off. The recliner sits abandoned, with Sandra's coat still hanging by the door. Era slides down to the floor beside the couch. The quiet is not happiness. It is only the absence of fear. Still, it feels almost impossible. That night, Era eats canned soup and washes the bowl by hand because she cannot stand the idea of leaving anything dirty for Sandra to scream about when she returns. No one calls with answers. The old landline stays silent. Her phone has only a message from her boss at the laundromat, asking if she can cover an extra shift. Late that night, Era goes to the window and stays hidden in the shadows. The black sedan is there again, parked in the same place, engine idling in the cold. No one gets out. No one moves. At 11:15, 3 slow knocks sound through the apartment door. Nobody knocks on Era's door that late. She creeps across the floor in her socks and looks through the peephole. A tall man stands in the hallway wearing a dark wool coat. His shoulders are broad, his face controlled, his posture too calm for a stranger outside a frightened girl's apartment. Recognizes the stillness from the sedan. She keeps the chain locked and asks who he is. Dante Moretti, he says. His voice is low and even. Then he tells her he has been watching the building for 3 weeks, and he knows she has noticed him. Era's hand tightens around the chain. She asks what he wants. Dante says he came to tell her what will happen when her mother gets out, and to give her something no one else has given her. Era asks what that is. A choice, he says. The word sits between them like something dangerous. He does not knock again. He does not push. He waits. Era looks through the peephole a second time, and he is still there, calm enough to let her decide whether the conversation continues. That frightens her almost as much as his presence. Sandra always forces. Dante waits. Era does not know which one is more dangerous. She asks how he knows Sandra. He says he does not. Then why are you watching me? Era asks. Dante's expression barely changes. Because someone should have been watching me when I was 8, he says. That answer lands strangely. Not soft enough to comfort her, but too honest to ignore. Era thinks about calling the police, but she knows how little that would do. Dante would disappear. Sandra would eventually come home. New trouble waiting. So she does something that feels almost impossible. She unhooks the chain and opens the door a few inches. Up close, Dante is larger than she expected, built like someone who knows violence from the inside. He looks at the bruise on her jaw, then at the swelling near her temple. He does not flinch. He does not pity her. Somehow that makes him more frightening. He looks at the damage like he understands the language of it. Yuri Aravas, he says. You already know that, she answers. He nods. I don't hide what I know. When she asks how he works, he says directly. Then he asks to come inside. Era says no. Dante accepts it without argument. He tells her Sandra is in jail for assaulting a police officer. With her record, she could be held anywhere from a few weeks to 3 months. He says it calmly, like a weather report. Then his voice changes, just slightly. When she gets out, she'll be worse. Era says nothing. She already knows. Dante looks toward the bruise on her face. Twice in 10 days, he says. That's only what I saw. Era hates him for knowing and hates herself for wanting him to keep talking. He takes a plain white card from his pocket and holds it out. 1 number. No name. Era does not take the card right away. What are you? She asks. Dante's mouth tightens, not in anger, but in recognition. He is not a cop, not a social worker, not some kind stranger from a safe world. The hallway seems colder around him. Someone your mother was right to warn you about, he says. Era asks why she should trust him. He answers without hesitation. You shouldn't. That is not the answer she expects. He tells her real trust cannot be sold in a doorway at midnight. Then he sets the card on the narrow hallway ledge and leaves, giving her no speech, no smile, no pressure. Era stands there long after he disappears down the stairwell. She wants to throw the card away. Instead, she slips it into the pocket of her hoodie. The next day at the laundromat, she folds sheets, towels, baby clothes, work shirts, and uniforms while the number burns against her hip. Sandra is locked up, but peace has an expiration date. Era knows the pattern. Every interruption in Sandra's life becomes Ara's punishment when Sandra returns. 2 days later, she comes home with groceries and finds Dante sitting on the front step as if the freezing concrete means nothing to him. He does not look surprised to see her. Era tells him she still has not called. Dante says he noticed. She asks why he is still there. He gives her the shape of the offer: clean documents, a safe apartment far from the neighborhood, a bank account in her name, and a path back to school through a legitimate fund he created 3 years earlier. No debt, no hidden favor, no obligation to ever see him again after she is safe. Era listens with grocery bags cutting into her hands. And impossible things usually have teeth. What's the catch? She asks. For the first time, something raw moves across Dante's face. He tells her he saw himself in her. At 8 years old, he waited for someone to step in, and nobody did. That is all he says about it. Not know whether to believe him. But she knows what it costs a person to say something that plain. She asks if he wants loyalty. He says he has enough men. Gratitude. He says gratitude makes people weak when it is demanded, a future favor. He almost laughs, but there is no humor in it. I don't need a 19-year-old girl owing me her life, he says. I need you alive long enough to own it yourself. Era looks at the cracked windows, the rusted fire escape, the building that has swallowed years of her life. She is not naive. Dangerous men do not usually offer mercy without wanting something back. Dante seems to know exactly what she is thinking. He says Sandra will not be able to reach her. Era asks how he can promise that. His answer is brutal. Better than she can promise you 1T end up in a hospital. The word hospital hits Era so hard she looks away. She has avoided that word for years, because saying it makes the future too real. Dante has dragged it into the open. That night, Era cooks beans and rice in the quiet apartment. Sandra is not there to complain about the smell, the stove, the sound of the spoon, or the way Era breathes. The silence feels borrowed. She takes the white card from her pocket, and sets it on the table. A number. No proof, no promise she can trust. Still, for the first time, the walls of the apartment do not look permanent. They look like something she might leave behind. In the dark, Ara finally admits what she has known for years. If she stays, this life will not simply hurt her. It will finish taking her apart. For 6 days, Ara carries the decision around like a stone in her pocket. On Friday morning, she calls Dante. He answers on the second ring. Not surprised, not pleased, just present. Ara tells him she is not saying yes. She has questions. She has written them down, because fear makes her memory unreliable. She asks about the safe house. Dante says it is owned by a shell company with no visible tie to him. Private. Clean. Hers alone until she decides what comes next. She asks if she can leave if she changes her mind. He says yes. The speed of the answer unsettles her. She asks about school, documents, money, the lawyer, and whether any of it is illegal enough to ruin her later. Dante answers each question without decorating it. The documents are legal. The fund is real. The apartment is already prepared. The danger is not the paperwork. The danger is being close to him for even a few days while he moves her. Ara hears the shift in his voice and asks what that means. Dante pauses. Enemies, he says. She almost laughs because of course he does. Then he adds, one of them is looking for a way to make my private decisions public. That is the first time Ara hears the name Vincent Caruso. Dante does not turn him into a ghost story. He gives her facts. Caruso controls parts of the North Side, wants Dante's Southport operations, and has been losing money for 8 months. Because Dante cut off a route he was using. Caruso is patient, proud, and dangerous when embarrassed. Ara asks why that matters to her. Dante says it should not have mattered. His voice goes colder. But someone in my world noticed I was watching your building. Ara sits at the kitchen table with the phone pressed to her ear, suddenly aware of every sound in the hallway. Dante says he is handling the leak, but the plan must stay quiet. Monday at noon. Pack light. Not tell Sandra. Do not call anyone from the apartment phone. Ara looks at the stains on the wall and feels her old life pressing closer. Sandra is due out the next week, according to the public defender's message on the landline. Dante says his information is different. 18 days. Maybe less. Ara's throat tightens. Of course he knows before she does. She asks if he is trying to scare her. No, he says. I'm trying not to let fear arrive late. 2 days before Sandra's expected release, Ara pulls an old army green backpack from the closet. The zipper is broken and held together with a safety pin. It is the same bag she carried before she dropped out of school. She sets it on the bed and stares at it. The bag is small, almost insultingly small for a whole life. She packs the only things she cannot replace. A faded photo of herself at 7 in a yellow sweater, her birth certificate, 2 outfits, a toothbrush, and a library book she knows she may never return. The backpack is barely half full. The worst possible sound comes from downstairs. The broken front door slams shut. Footsteps drag up the stairwell, heavy on the left, lighter on the right. Ara freezes. Sandra is back. She is not supposed to be back for 2 more days. But the footsteps stop outside the apartment. 3 hard knocks shake the doorframe. Ara moves on instinct. She shoves the backpack under the mattress, smooths the blanket, and wipes her face clean of panic. In that apartment, quick reflexes are not a talent. They are survival. She opens the door and Sandra stands on the landing, hollow-eyed, sober, and furious. Sandra looks wrecked, not just drunk or tired, but raw, as if jail chewed her up and spat her back into the hallway. She wears the same dirty clothes she had been arrested in. No one picked her up. She walked home alone. Without a word, she pushes past Ara and goes straight to the kitchen. She pulls a cheap plastic bottle of liquor from the cabinet, pours a heavy glass, and drinks half of it. Ara asks carefully why she was released early. Sandra scoffs. You keep your mouth shut for 18 days. They call it good behavior. The apartment shrinks around Ara. Sandra complains about the officer, the cell, the food, the women in holding, the public defender, the whole world. Then she tells Ara to go buy cigarettes. This time, Ara does not move. She does not raise her voice. She simply says she is not going to the store. The silence that follows is worse than yelling. Sandra stares at her as if Ara has spoken a foreign language. Ara repeats it. She is not going. Behind the calm words sits 19 years of swallowed fear. Sandra's eyes sharpen. She reaches for guilt first, then anger. Ara keeps her face still, because she has 36 hours left to survive. Sandra storms out with her purse, probably remembering some hidden cash stash. The door slams behind her with a scrape like a coffin lid. Ara waits 3 full seconds before moving. Then she runs to the bedroom, checks the backpack, and slides it deeper under the mattress. She looks at Dante's number but does not call. Changing the plan in a panic feels dangerous. 2 hours later, Sandra returns with cigarettes and another bottle. She has already started drinking. Ara sits on the couch and pretends to read, head down, body still. Sandra ignores her at first, then says Aunt Carol called that morning. The machine picked up, Sandra says. Carol knows she is home. Carol has been talking to social services again. Era turns a page she has not read and keeps her face empty, though her pulse starts racing. Sandra asks if Era has been telling people their business. Era says no. Sandra hates how calm her voice sounds. She says it makes her feel insane. Era has learned that people who cannot control themselves often resent anyone who can. Sandra stands there, dirty, exhausted, and shaking with anger that has not found a target yet. Era does not look toward the bedroom. She cannot risk giving the backpack away. Sandra studies her face, searching for a lie even when Ara is telling the truth. Then her eyes narrow. "You read different," she says. The words land like a hand around Era's throat. Sandra begins scanning the room. Era forces herself to speak normally. She says she worked, bought groceries, cleaned what she could, and kept the apartment quiet while Sandra was gone. Sandra watches her for a long moment, then pours another drink and says they will talk later. Era spends the next 4 hours pretending to read. 32 hours remain until Monday noon. The plan still exists, but now it feels thin enough to tear. Late that night, Sandra stops outside Era's bedroom door. Her voice is thick and slurred, but softer than before. She says a counselor at the facility talked to her about family conflict. She says there were resources, classes, even a phone number. Era sits in the dark with her back against the wall and answers carefully. Then Sandra whispers that she knows things have been hard. The words hurt in a way Era does not expect. A damaged part of her wants to believe them, but 3 gentle sentences cannot erase 19 years. Era keeps thinking of the backpack under the mattress and the black sedan waiting outside. Morning comes gray and tense. Sandra wakes in the recliner, stiff and sour, and tries to act normal while Era makes cheap coffee. In the hard kitchen light, Sandra looks less like a monster and more like a sick, exhausted woman. Era feels pity, and the pity frightens her. Pity has kept her in this apartment before. Then Sandra says something an older woman in holding told her. The hardest truth in life is realizing the people you love have started packing their bags behind your back. She looks straight at Ara and asks, "Are you planning to leave me?" The water runs over Era's hands. She cannot move. Era is about to lie when Sandra's phone buzzes on the counter. Sandra reads the message and her face changes. All the tiredness drains away, leaving something cold and alert. She looks up and asks, "Who is Dante Moretti?" Era's blood goes still. The text came from an unknown number. It says Era has been seen talking with a dangerous man and that Sandra should ask her daughter what Dante promised her. The secret has surfaced less than a day before the escape. Sandra's eyes lock onto Era's face, sharp and predatory, waiting for something to crack. Sandra demands the truth. Era tells a partial one because partial truth is all she can afford. Dante is a man from across the street. They spoke a few times. Sandra laughs once without humor. She knows the name. Dante Moretti is not a neighbor. He is not some man in a car. He is a mob boss tied to the Northeast docks. Feared by men Sandra has only heard mentioned in whispers. "What does a man like that want with you?" Sandra asks. Era's hands begin to shake. She thinks of the backpack, the card, the apartment waiting somewhere far from here. Then she says it. "He offered to help me get out." Sandra's face moves through shock, hurt, and rage. "Get out of what?" she asks. Era does not answer, because the silence answers for her. Out of the apartment, out of the shouting, out of the bruises, out from under Sandra. Sandra understands. Her voice drops to a whisper. "You packed a bag." She starts down the hallway before Era can stop her. Era's hip hits the counter as she lunges after her. Sandra turns and her hand comes up. This time Era catches her wrist in midair. Both of them freeze. Era has never done that before. The whole apartment seems to hold its breath. Era's hand shakes around Sandra's wrist, but she does not let go. "I am done," she says. Her voice is not strong, but it is clear. "I love you. I hate that I love you. But I can keep letting this happen." Sandra stares at her, stunned by the break in their old pattern. Then she pulls away and storms into the bedroom. Drawers open, fabric scrapes. Era stands in the kitchen, unable to breathe. Sandra returns with the backpack dangling from one strap. The old photo peeks out of the front pocket. The anger in Sandra's face falters. She realizes Ara truly meant to leave without saying goodbye. For a moment, Sandra looks devastated enough to be human again. Then fear twists her grief into blame. She grabs her phone and says she is calling whoever warned her. Era shouts for her to stop, but Sandra is already dialing. Era snatches the phone from her hand and sees the number on the screen. It means nothing to her, but Sandra's blank expression says enough. Someone from the facility spoke to Sandra in holding. A woman claimed she knew people tracking Dante Moretti. Sandra, desperate and angry, gave that woman Era's name, the building, and enough details to make the search easy. Era goes cold. Her mother has handed her name to strangers tied to Dante's enemies. Sandra insists she was trying to protect her, understands that protection has become danger again. Then a new message arrives. It is not for Sandra anymore. It is for Era. Tell Moretti the girl belongs to whoever finds her first. Era reads it twice before the words make sense. Sandra sees the color leave her daughter's face and finally understands. The danger is not coming later. It is already in the building, or close enough. Era grabs the backpack, takes her phone and moves toward the door. Sandra begs her not to go to Dante. Era turns in the doorway, shaking with rage and fear. You gave them my name, she says. Sandra sobs that Era is all she has. The words hit hard because part of Era still loves her. That is the cruelest part. Love does not disappear just because it becomes unsafe. But Era cannot let that love be used as a lock anymore. She says goodbye and runs. Down the concrete stairs, past the peeling paint, past the mailboxes with broken doors. She calls Dante. He answers on the first ring. Era tells him everything. His voice changes at once, cold and precise. Dante asks where she is. She says the stairs. He tells her not to use the front exit. Find the rear door. Stay close to the building. No running unless he tells her to run. Era reaches the first floor and slips through a service hallway that smells of mildew and old pipes. The back door screeches as she pushes it open. Cold wind hits her face. Dante gives her a location, Rector and Vine. Turn left. Keep her head down. He will be there in 7 minutes. Era wants to ask how bad this is. She already knows. The answer is in the way Dante has stopped sounding human and started sounding ready. The alley is narrow, lined with dumpsters and chain-link fences. Era walks fast but does not run. Panic screams inside her, but she keeps her steps controlled. At the corner of Rector and Vine, she sees a gray car idling half a block away. 2 men sit in the front, too still, too interested in the empty street. She looks away slowly, careful not to show that she has noticed. Her phone buzzes. Dante's text says 2 minutes. Do not move. Enough to snap. Then the black sedan sweeps around the corner and pulls tight to the curb. The passenger door opens from inside. Era has 1 second to choose. Staying on the sidewalk means being seen. Getting in means trusting a dangerous man. She gets in. Dante pulls away before the door is fully shut. His jaw is tight, his eyes cutting to the rearview mirror. He glances once at her bruised face, then back to the street. Era tells him about the gray car. He says he saw it. 2 men, Caruso's people. They were waiting for her to panic and step into the open. Dante drives smoothly, refusing to speed. Panic attracts attention. Control hides it. Era grips the seatbelt and tries to make her breathing quiet. She asks who Caruso is. Dante gives the short version because there is no time for the long one. Vincent Caruso used to control the old harbor routes until Dante closed one of his profitable doors. Since then, Caruso has been bleeding money and pride. Men like that cannot always tell the difference. Sandra gave them a thread to pull. Ara says Sandra did not know what she was doing. Dante looks at the mirror. That rarely stops the damage. The gray car appears behind them, 2 vehicles back. Dante does not curse. He turns hard without signaling and cuts down a narrow one-way street. The chase starts quietly, then all at once. Dante pushes through a yellow light just as it turns red. The gray car runs it behind them, horns blaring in the intersection. Era's stomach drops. Dante tells her to hold on. He takes another sharp turn, threads the sedan between a delivery truck and a parked van, then swings into a parking garage. Tires scrape against concrete as they climb the ramp. On the 3rd level, he slides into a dark space, kills the engine and cuts the lights. The sudden silence is worse than the speed. Era hears only the cooling engine and her own pulse. She whispers, "Did we lose them?" Dante says, "For now." He types with one hand, sending instructions to men she cannot see. Then he tells her the part he did not want to say before. Caruso found out too fast. Someone inside Dante's own crew leaked that he had been watching her building. Dante handled the traitor that morning, but the damage had already spread. Caruso's people have known about Era for at least 4 days. They waited until she reached for Dante, because a person is easiest to trap when they are already running from something else. Era understands then that she is not only a person in danger, she is leverage, a handle Caruso can use to pull Dante out of position. Dante apologizes, and the word sounds strange coming from him. Monday's plan was supposed to be clean, a quiet pickup, no chase, no witnesses, no trail back to Sandra. Now that plan is dead. From the level below, a car engine crawls through the garage. Someone is searching. Dante's hand slides inside his coat. Era sees the gun for the first time, not fully, just enough metal to make the air change. She asks what he needs her to do. Dante looks straight at her. "Can you run?" Her shoulder aches. Her hip still throbs from the counter. Her jaw hurts every time she clenches it. She says yes. He tells her his men are in stairwell B, 30 meters away. And he gives the signal. She is to run there without stopping, without looking back, no matter what happens behind her. He says it once, not like advice, but like the line between living and not living. Era nods. Below them, the searching car cuts its engine. The silence goes heavy. Dante opens his door without a sound and steps out. They move through the dim yellow light of the garage, keeping low between parked cars. Their footsteps barely touch the concrete. Then an engine roars up the ramp. Dante's hand touches Ara's arm. Now Ara runs. The heavy gray stairwell door bursts open under her shoulder, and freezing air hits her face. Behind them, car doors slam. Men's voices echo through the garage, calm and professional, which scares her more than shouting would have. Dante follows her inside, one hand near his weapon, the other already sending another message. He tells her to go up one floor. She climbs until her legs burn. On the 4th level, a black SUV waits with 2 men standing guard. Marcus is built like he could tear a door from its hinges. Yev is lean, sharp-eyed, and already scanning every shadow. The back door opens. Era slides in, and Dante gets in beside her. As the SUV pulls away, 2 rival men burst onto the level behind them. One lifts a phone, snapping a photo before they disappear down the exit ramp. Era sees Dante's face when he notices. His expression does not change much, but something in the car tightens. The photo means Caruso has proof. The trap has widened. Dante tells Ara that the next few hours may be worse than the parking garage. Caruso is too careful to strike at Dante directly without reason. But now he has seen Ara in Dante's car, and he will use whatever looks vulnerable. Ara asks what that means. Dante's phone rings before he can answer. He listens without speaking. And the mask cracks for 1 second. Not fear. Something colder. He ends the call and tells the driver to turn around. Caruso's men went back to Ara's apartment building. Sandra is still inside. Ara's breath catches. Her mother has become the bait. Dante says it is a trap. They want Ara emotional and him exposed. Ara knows that, but all she can see is Sandra in the apartment, dirty and terrified, facing men who do not care about her pain, her addiction, or her excuses. To Caruso, Sandra is not a person. She is a pressure point. Ara grabs Dante's sleeve. She doesn't know anything, she says. They'll figure that out and hurt her anyway. Dante warns her again. Ara looks him in the eye. She says, my mother. The word lands somewhere deep in him. For a moment, he looks like a boy remembering someone who should have turned back and did not. Dante tells the driver to head to Rector Street. He calls Marcus and Yev, his voice low and exact. They park 2 blocks away to stay out of sight. Dante gives the plan in clipped sentences. Marcus goes through the back. Yev covers the east stairwell. Dante and Ara enter through the front, because Caruso's men need to see her before they decide whether Sandra is useful. Ara almost laughs when he asks if she can walk in without showing fear. She has been doing that her whole life. Push through the squeaking front door. The elevator has been broken since Ara was 14. They take the stairs. The building smells of dust, wet carpet, and old food. Ara's mind narrows to details. 2nd floor, 3rd floor. A television buzzing behind a closed door. Dante's controlled breathing beside her. On the 4th floor, she stops. The apartment doors open a crack, not kicked in, not broken, just left that way by someone who does not care. A low male voice comes from inside. Dante touches her shoulder, warning her to slow down. The touch is light, almost careful. Ara does not know why that steadies her, but it does. They move closer. The door opens wider. The apartment has been searched with care. Couch cushions overturned, drawers emptied, the telephone cord ripped from the wall. Sandra sits on the couch, awake and shaking. The first relief Ara feels all morning is followed immediately by fear. 2 men are in the apartment. One stands near the window, the other by the hallway. They watch Ara, as if they have been waiting for her to enter the frame. Sandra tries to stand, saying she knows nothing. The man by the window looks past her and focuses on Dante. Mr. Moretti, he says. Dante knows him. His name is Ray. Dante's voice stays even. This is unnecessary. Ray smiles without warmth. Mr. Caruso disagrees. The second man keeps staring at Ara. Ray says Caruso wants a conversation, one Dante has avoided for months. Dante steps into the middle of the room, as if the apartment belongs to him now. He says dragging civilians into dock business is sloppy. Ray answers that the girl made it personal the moment Dante put her in his car. Ara hates the word girl in his mouth. She is tired of men discussing her like an object they can trade. Dante turns slightly, enough to put himself between her and the second man. Caruso is not making a move, Dante says. He is throwing a tantrum in a poor woman's apartment. Ray's face tightens. Dante keeps pressing, calm and merciless. Caruso has already lost money, men, and respect. If he now uses an abused mother and her daughter as leverage, everyone watching the docks will know he has run out of real power. Ray understands the danger in that. Criminal men have rules, not because they are moral, but because chaos is expensive. He needs to make a call. Dante tells him to do it outside. Ray gives his partner a look, then steps into the hall with his phone. The second man remains inside, restless, eyes fixed on Era. She knows that look. He wants an excuse. Sandra sits frozen on the couch. Dante barely moves, but his attention sharpens. From the back of the apartment, a window slides open. Marcus. The second man glances toward the sound for half a second. That is all Dante needs. He crosses the room in 2 steps, grabs the man by the collar, and drives him down with controlled force. Marcus comes through the window and pins him before he can reach for anything, unaware that the balance has changed. Ray returns and stops dead when he sees his partner on the floor. Before Dante can speak, Ray's phone lights up again. The name on the screen is not written out, only a single letter, C. Ray looks at Dante, then at Era, and answers with the speaker on. Vincent Caruso's voice fills the apartment, smooth, older, and amused. "Let the girl hear me," he says. The room goes still. Dante's face turns colder than Era has ever seen it. Caruso tells Era that Dante saves people the way men like him buy buildings, quietly, cleanly, and always with a use in mind. Caruso says Ara can still walk away. 1 hour, come to the old ferry terminal alone and Sandra lives. Stay with Dante, and Sandra pays for every choice Ara makes after this. Sandra makes a small broken sound on the couch. Dante takes 1 step toward the phone, but Ara lifts her hand, stopping him without looking away. Her fingers tremble. Her voice does not. She tells Caruso she has spent 19 years being blamed for another person and pain, and she is not accepting his version of it too. Caruso's amusement fades. He says Dante cannot protect everyone. Era answers, maybe not. But I am done protecting men who threaten women to feel powerful. For 1 beat, nobody breathes. Then Caruso's voice drops. He tells Ara she has no idea what room she just walked into. Era looks at Sandra, then at Dante, then at the ruined apartment that almost became her whole life. I know exactly what room I walked out of, she says. Then she ends the call. Even Dante looks at her differently, as if he has just seen her stand, without anyone holding her up. Ray understands the call changed everything. Caruso wanted fear. Instead, the girl spoke. That kind of story travels. Dante tells Ray to leave while leaving is still an option. Ray collects his man and backs out. Then Dante's phone lights again. This time it is not Ray. It is Yev. Dante listens, and the room tightens around his silence. Caruso has not only sent men to Sandra's apartment, he has burned one of Dante's Southport warehouses, the clean one Dante used to keep weapons away from the street. No one is dead, but one of Dante's younger men is in the hospital, and Caruso has left a message painted across the loading doors. No charity without cost. Era hears it and feels the floor tilt. Her escape has already cost someone she has never met. Dante ends the call and says quietly, that cost is mine, not yours. Sandra folds in on herself, crying without making much sound. She says she put Era in danger and pulled Dante's world into her home. Era looks at her mother and feels grief, anger, and exhaustion all at once. You always knew it was bad, Mom, she says. That's what I had to stop waiting for. Knowing was never the same as changing. Sandra does not argue. Era tells her to call the counselor from the facility, not to win Era back, not to erase anything, but because another bottle will only create another room full of glass. Sandra nods. Era lifts the backpack onto her shoulder. This time Sandra does not reach for it. Era says she is leaving for good. The words are heavy, but they do not crush her. She leans down and kisses the top of Sandra's head. Sandra catches her wrist at the last second, not to stop her, but to feel the leaving happen. Era walks out and does not look back. The SUV waits in the alley. Dante opens the door but does not touch her. That matters. He lets her choose every step. Inside the car, no one speaks for several blocks. Era watches the city slide past the window and realizes she is shaking. Dante notices but says nothing at first. Then Dante takes off his coat and places it between them on the seat, not around her shoulders, not over her like she belongs to him, just close enough for her to take if she wants. Era waits a few seconds. Then she pulls it around herself. It smells like cold air, smoke, and expensive wool. She asks if the man in the hospital will live. Dante says yes, but his voice is not as steady as before. Era looks at him then, really looks. He is not made of stone. He has simply spent years standing still, so no one could see what moved inside him. I am sorry, she says. Dante keeps his eyes on the road. Don't waste sorry on men who chose the life. Save it for yourself. The safe apartment is 3 boroughs away, hidden in an ordinary building with clean hallways and locks that work. Dante walks her through it without drama. Front lock, rear exit, fire escape deadbolt, camera blind spots, phone on the counter, emergency number taped inside the cabinet. At the door, he says the lawyer will contact her Monday, and Dr. Fontaine from a community college will help with school. Era keeps his coat folded over her arms. She asks what will happen to Caruso. Dante's answer is flat. Caruso used civilians, burned a protected warehouse, and injured a man who was not part of his fight. Now everyone will know he has lost discipline. Ara asks if Dante is going to kill him. Dante looks at her for a long moment. No, he says. I'm going to let every man who still trusts him understand what he just made them vulnerable to. She understands enough not to ask more. Then she asks if the promise still stands. No debt, no loyalty, no future favor. Dante looks directly at her. It stands. She asks about the 8-year-old boy he mentioned. Pain crosses his face before he hides it. His mother used to lock him in a pantry when his father drank. One night, men came for his father and heard Dante breathing behind the door. They left him there anyway. That was the first lesson I learned about powerful men, Dante says. Most of them only open doors for themselves. Era does not know what to say. Dante looks away as if he has already said too much. He tells her she owes him nothing. Not even sympathy. He leaves before the silence can turn into something neither of them is ready to name. When the door closes, the quiet settles over the apartment. It does not feel empty. It feels clean. Era drops her backpack, takes out the photo of the gap-toothed girl in the yellow sweater, and places it on the windowsill. Then she cries, not because she is safe completely, but because no one is coming through the door to punish her for breathing. The first night is not peaceful. Era wakes 5 times, certain she heard footsteps. Each time, there is only the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic. In the morning, sunlight falls across the floor in a clean square. Era stands in it for a while, unsure what to do with a room that does not demand anything from her. The lawyer calls exactly when Dante said he would. Dr. Fontaine calls after lunch. Her voice is precise, warm, and not too gentle. Era appreciates that. Too much softness feels suspicious. Dr. Fontaine offers an appointment, not pity. Ara says yes. Every small task after that feels like proof that she is still here. She meets Dr. Fontaine at the community college, where the hallways smell of coffee, printer paper, and people moving toward futures they believe they deserve. Ara does not believe that yet. Dr. Fontaine does not force her to. She only asks what Ara wants to study. Ara says she does not know. Then she admits she has always been good at noticing when people are afraid. Dr. Fontaine listens carefully and says, "That is not nothing." Dante keeps his distance. His people check the building from outside, but he does not come in. The space he leaves behind becomes part of the promise he said he would not take. So far, he does not. 3 weeks later, Ara sees the black sedan across the street from the safe apartment. Anger rises first, sharp and immediate. Then her phone buzzes with a message from an unknown number. Caruso's captains turned on him tonight. The man in the hospital is awake. After this, you should not see my men again. Era reads it twice. There is no apology, no flourish, just information. She types back, "You lost something because of me." The reply comes quickly. "I lost something because Caruso made a choice." Era stares at the words for a long time, then writes, "I made one too." Dante answers, "I know." She deletes the thread, but not before reading it one more time. That same night, Sandra calls from a clinic number. Era lets it ring. Sandra leaves a message. Her voice is hoarse, sober, and careful. She says she called the counselor. She says she is entering a program and will not ask Era to come back. Era listens to the message in pieces over 3 days. Each time, she stops before the end, then starts again. When she finally hears the whole thing, she sits on the floor by the bed and feels grief without letting it become a command. She does not call back. Not yet, maybe not for a long time. Her peace is still too new to risk. Era enrolls in classes part-time first, then full-time. The first semester is brutal. The work is hard, but the harder part is sitting in a library without listening for footsteps, hearing someone laugh too loudly without flinching, or watching a professor walk behind her chair without her whole body locking up. Dr. Fontaine tells her survival habits do not disappear simply because danger does. They have to be thanked, then slowly released. Era thinks that sounds too neat. Still, she tries. She studies at the same table every Tuesday and Thursday. Winter, she can sit with her back to the room for almost 10 minutes. It sounds small until a person understands what fear does to a body. Dante becomes a story she does not tell people. Not because she is ashamed, but because some things lose shape when explained too early. Once in a while, a plain envelope appears with paperwork, a contact number, or a note from the lawyer. Never money in cash. Never gift. Never a reason to owe him. The fund pays tuition exactly as promised. Era works evenings at a small grocery store because she wants some money that belongs only to her effort. The first time she buys herself a lamp with her own wages. She brings it home and turns it on 3 times just to watch the room become hers. In her second year, Era chooses social work. People act surprised as if suffering should make a person want distance from suffering forever. Era understands that. Some days she wants distance too, but she also knows what fear looks like when it hides behind silence, anger, or fake indifference. She knows how a child studies the room before answering a simple question. She knows why someone might lie to protect the person hurting them. These are not gifts she would have chosen, but they are skills she can use. Dr. Fontaine never calls her past a strength. She calls it material. Era likes that better. Caruso's name appears once more, in a small news article about a waterfront investigation, frozen accounts, and several arrests tied to warehouse fraud. The article never mentions Dante. It shows Vincent Caruso being guided into a courthouse, older than Ara imagined, with silver hair, a beautiful coat, and eyes that look annoyed rather than afraid. The article also mentions a burned warehouse and an injured employee who refused to testify. Ara reads that line 3 times. This is the cost Dante told her not to carry. She carries a small piece of it anyway. Not as guilt, but as memory. Monsters are often ordinary. That is why people miss them until the damage is already done. Ara does not send the article to Dante. She does not need to. 2 nights later, she finds a text from the same unsaved number. "You were right to hang up on him." She reads it while sitting on the edge of her bed. Then she types, "You were right to turn around for my mother." The reply takes longer this time. "No, you were." Ara places the phone face down and lets the words sit in the room. For the first time, she understands that Dante did not save her in one clean gesture. He opened a door. She is the one who had to walk through it. Years pass, not smoothly but steadily. Ara has nightmares. She has good days that frighten her, because she waits for them to be taken away. She learns which friends can sit with silence, and which ones need every pain turned into a lesson. She chooses the quiet ones. She rents a better apartment, then a slightly better one. She keeps the yellow sweater photo on every windowsill she lives near. Sandra sends no letters for a long time. Ara is grateful and sad about that in equal measure. Healing, she discovers, is not a straight road. It is learning not to punish yourself for still looking back. In her 4th year, Ara graduates with a degree in social work. During the ceremony, she sits with her shoulders straight and her hands folded in her lap. Dr. Fontaine shakes her hand afterward and says something Ara never repeats. Some words are meant to stay private. 3 months later, Ara takes an underpaid entry-level job at a youth services organization. She is new on paper, but she understands the work quickly. She knows how to make a cold fluorescent office feel less like an interrogation room. She knows not to ask certain questions too fast. She knows that safety begins with letting someone keep control of their own story. One girl, 16 and sharp-tongued, refuses to speak for 3 meetings. Ara does not push. On the 4th, the girl asks why Ara is not annoyed yet. Ara says, because silence is still communication. The girl looks away, but she comes back the next week. Ara goes home that night and cries in the shower, not from sadness exactly, but from the strange relief of using what once hurt her to help someone else breathe. That same month, a letter from Sandra arrives at the office. Not a call, a handwritten note on cheap paper, the ink slightly smeared. Ara lets the envelope sit in her desk drawer for 2 full days. When Ara finally opens it, the letter is short. Sandra has been sober for 4 years. She includes the address of her Thursday night meeting, not because she expects Ara to come, but because proof matters. She has been in therapy for 2 years, with the counselor Ara told her to call the morning she left. At the bottom, Sandra signs Mom, crosses it out, writes Sandra, and leaves both names there. There is no demand inside it. No plea for forgiveness, no soft rewrite of the past. Sandra writes that she is alive and trying to live with what she did, instead of running from it. Ara places the letter in a drawer beside the childhood photo, then takes it out again and brings it home. For 3 weeks, she does nothing. When she finally writes back, she offers no forgiveness and no anger. Only the truth. I received your letter. I am glad you are alive. The shape of my life is good. She includes no home address. Boundaries can be gentle and still be real. She mails the letter on a Tuesday morning and stands beside the mailbox for a moment before letting it drop. The return address belongs to the Youth Services Organization, where she has become a supervisor. Her office overlooks a small courtyard where children play after school. Sometimes their laughter startles her. More often now, it does not. Her life is larger than anything her 19-year-old self could have imagined. A neighborhood where the coffee shop owner knows her order, work that matters, and a gray cat with the ridiculous name Detective Pancake. Dante appears again on a rainy November afternoon, not at her home. Never there. He comes to the office lobby and waits under the weak fluorescent lights. Older now, a little more gray at the temples, still too calm for any room he enters. Ara sees him through the glass doors and feels the past rise fast, then settle. She goes downstairs. He does not hug her. He does not offer his hand. He simply says, "You look well." Ara says, "I am." For both of them, the words carry more than they should. He tells her Dr. Fontaine invited him to fund a youth housing project anonymously. Ara lifts an eyebrow. Anonymously, but you came here. Dante almost smiles. He says he came because the project should be hers to refuse. Ara reads the proposal in the lobby, while rain taps against the windows. Housing for teenagers leaving dangerous homes. Legal aid, counseling. No public Moretti name. Ara does not say yes immediately. She takes the folder upstairs, reads every page, checks every channel, and makes him change 3 clauses before accepting the money. One clause would have allowed his foundation to withdraw funding without notice. She crosses it out and writes 30 days minimum. Dante accepts every change. "You learned to negotiate," he says. Era looks up. "I learned not to thank people before reading the terms." For the first time, Dante's smile is visible and brief. The project opens the following spring. It is not perfect. Nothing real is. Some teenagers leave and come back. Some refuse help until help stops looking like a trap. On opening day, Ara stands in the doorway of the first apartment and watches a 17-year-old boy set a backpack on a clean bed. He keeps touching the blanket as if someone might snatch it away. Era does not tell him she knows the feeling. She only says the lock works. The food is in the cabinet and he can close the door whenever he wants privacy. His face changes at the word privacy. That night, Era goes home exhausted and sits on the kitchen floor, with Detective Pancake circling her ankles. Her phone buzzes. A message from Dante says, "Fontaine says the first apartment is occupied." Era types, "Yes." He replies, "That matters." Era never becomes someone untouched by the past. She stops wanting that. The past is in her carefulness, her patience, her refusal to rush frightened people toward gratitude. It is in the way she checks locks before bed and still loves rainy mornings. No longer believes every room is a threat. Sandra sends a letter once a year. Era answers some years and not others. Eventually, they meet in a public garden for 23 minutes. Sandra is thinner, sober, and shaking. She apologizes without asking for anything. Era listens. That is all she can give. It is enough. After the meeting, Era sits in her car with both hands on the steering wheel. She does not feel healed in the simple way people like to imagine. She feels sad, relieved, angry, and free all at once. Sandra did change. That matters. Sandra also did not change in time to protect the child Era had been. That matters too. Era drives home without calling anyone. She feeds Detective Pancake, makes tea, and takes out the yellow sweater photo from the windowsill. The little girl in the picture is smiling, without knowing what is coming. Era touches the edge of the frame and whispers, "I got us out." The greatest change is still how she sleeps. Years later, Era no longer listens for footsteps in the dark. Her body, stubborn and loyal, has finally stopped running the old alarm every night. It knows the difference between memory and danger now. One Sunday evening in October, she sits on the porch of the home she owns and watches the sunset turn orange behind the trees. Detective Pancake sprawls beside her like a retired king. Era takes out her phone and types a number from memory, one she never saved. The message is simple. "Thank you still. Always." She sends it before she can overthink it. The reply comes 5 minutes later. "You are welcome. Always." Era places the phone face down and breathes in the crisp October air. The girl who once lay on a thin mattress, counting bruises like calendar marks, is gone. And yet she is still part of everything. She lives in the hands that packed the backpack, in the body that learned to stop bracing, in the voice that told Caruso she was not property, in the heart that could love Sandra without returning to the cage. Era sits as evening settles and lets the quiet be ordinary. After everything, ordinary feels like a miracle. A week later, Dr. Fontaine retires. At the small farewell dinner, she pulls Era aside and says she has left a box for her at the office. Era finds it the next morning. Inside are old case notes, program drafts, a photograph from Era's graduation, and a single page in Dr. Fontaine's careful handwriting. It says, "You were never raw material because you were broken. You were raw material because you were still becoming." Era sits at her desk for a long time with the page in her hands. Then she tapes it inside the top drawer, where only she can see it when the days get heavy. The youth housing project grows. It gains a second building, then a third. Era becomes the director, though she still hates being introduced at fundraisers. She learns to speak in front of rooms full of people with money, asking them for practical things instead of sympathy, beds, legal hours, transportation passes, dental care, tutors. She never tells her own story on stage. She does not need to. Her work tells enough. Once, from the back of a crowded hall, she sees Dante standing near the exit. He leaves before the applause. Later, one line arrives on her phone. "You opened more doors than I ever did." Era does not answer right away. She thinks about doors. The bedroom door Sandra slammed open. The apartment door Dante knocked on. The service exit into the alley. The safe apartment door that locked from the inside. Then she writes, "You opened the first one. I kept going." His reply comes after a long pause. Fair, she laughs softly, surprising herself. Detective Pancake lifts his head from the couch, offended by the noise. Era scratches his ears and looks around the living room. Books, plants, a blanket folded over a chair. Shoes by the door, a life with no need to apologize for existing. It is not perfect. It is hers. Sandra dies 9 years after Era leaves. The call comes from a nurse at a clinic, not a police officer. And for that, Era is strangely grateful. Sandra had stayed sober until the end. She had volunteered at meetings, made bad coffee, folded chairs, and sometimes drove women home when they had nowhere safe to go. Era attends the small service. She stands in the back, wearing a dark coat, and listens as people describe a woman who hurt others and then spent her remaining years trying not to. Both truths fit in the same room. Era places the yellow sweater photo in her coat pocket and leaves for if anyone can ask her who she is. That evening, Era walks home instead of taking a cab. The city is cold but not cruel. She stops at a corner where a black sedan waits at a red light, and for one sharp second she is 19 again. Moves on, and the past loosens its grip. At home, she makes soup, feeds the cat, and writes one sentence in a notebook she keeps for herself. Some endings do not close the wound, but they stop it from bleeding into everything. She does not make the sentence pretty. She does not need to. It is true, and true is enough. Years after that, on another quiet October evening, Era sits on the porch as the last light fades. Her phone rests beside her silent. She no longer measures time by fear, release dates, footsteps, or the next explosion. Time simply passes. Children laugh somewhere down the block. A neighbor's dog barks. Detective Pancake, older now and heavier, jumps down from the chair and wanders inside. Era stays where she is. She thinks of Sandra, Dante, Dr. Fontaine, the boy with the backpack, the girl in the yellow sweater, and the woman she became by refusing to disappear. Peace did not arrive all at once. It came in pieces she chose to keep. The porch grows dark and feels the night around her without bracing against it. Once, survival was the only thing she knew how to do. Then survival became a doorway. Then the doorway became a life. She understands now that being free does not mean the past never reaches for you. It means you know how to unclench your hand when it does. Era rises, turns off the porch light, and goes inside her warm house. Behind her, the street settles into quiet. Ahead of her, there is nothing dramatic waiting, only an ordinary evening, and more than enough life to fill it. Every mafia boss story is not only about power, money, revenge, or fear. Beneath the violence and darkness, there is often a painful human lesson about choices, consequences, loyalty, family, and the price of ambition. This story reminds us that no matter how powerful a person becomes, no one can escape the truth forever. Hundreds of people, and make others tremble at the sound of his name. But if his heart is empty, his victory is never complete. The mafia boss in this story represents a man who built his life on control. He believed that fear was stronger than love, that silence was safer than honesty, and that power could protect him from pain. For years, he may have won every battle in the streets, in business, and among his enemies. But the most important battle was never outside him. It was inside his own heart. That is where he truly lost himself. One of the most meaningful lessons from this story is that power without morality becomes a prison. Many people dream of becoming rich, respected, or feared. They think success means having control over others. But real success is not measured by how many people obey you. It is measured by how many lives you protect, how much peace you create, and how much good remains after you are gone. The mafia boss had money, influence, and protection, but he did not have peace. His life shows us that a person can be surrounded by luxury and still feel completely alone. Another important lesson is that loyalty is valuable, but blind loyalty can destroy lives. In the world of crime, loyalty is often treated like the highest law. People are expected to follow orders without question. Never mean giving up your conscience. A loyal person does not simply protect someone's secrets. A loyal person also has the courage to stop someone from destroying themselves. This story teaches us that loyalty without honesty is dangerous. Real loyalty should be connected to truth, respect, and moral responsibility. The story also shows the heavy cost of revenge. Revenge often feels powerful in the beginning. It gives a person the illusion that pain can be answered with pain. But revenge rarely heals anything. Instead, it creates a chain of suffering that keeps growing. One act of revenge leads to another. One betrayal leads to another. In the end, everyone loses something. The mafia boss may have believed that revenge would restore his honor, but what it truly did was steal his humanity piece by piece. This is a powerful reminder that forgiveness is not weakness. Sometimes, forgiveness is the strongest decision a person can make because it breaks the cycle of hatred. Family is another central lesson in this kind of story. Many mafia bosses claim they do everything for family. They say they commit crimes to protect the people they love. But protection without honesty can become another form of harm. A family does not only need money or security. A family needs trust, emotional safety, and love that is not poisoned by fear. If a father, husband, brother, or son becomes powerful but loses the ability to show tenderness, then his family may live in a beautiful house, but still feel trapped inside it. This story reminds us that children and loved ones often pay the price for the choices of powerful men. The mafia boss may think his decisions only affect his enemies, but every secret, every violent act, and every betrayal leaves a shadow over the innocent people around him. That is why one of the strongest educational messages is this: before making a decision, we must ask ourselves who will suffer because of it. A selfish choice may bring temporary success, but it can create long-term pain for the people we love most. Another meaningful point is the danger of pride. Pride can make a person refuse to apologize, refuse to change, and refuse to admit they are wrong. The mafia boss may have spent years believing that saying sorry would make him look weak, but in reality, the ability to apologize is a sign of strength. It takes courage to face the damage we have caused. It takes maturity to admit that we hurt someone, and it takes true character to change before it is too late. The story also teaches that redemption is possible, but it always requires sacrifice. A person cannot simply say they have changed. They must prove it through action. Redemption means accepting responsibility, protecting the innocent, telling the truth, and sometimes losing everything that was built on lies. For a mafia boss, redemption may mean walking away from power, exposing corruption, saving someone he once endangered, or choosing love over control. The path to redemption is painful because it forces a person to confront the worst parts of themselves, but it is also the only path that can lead to peace. From a human perspective, this story is powerful because it shows that even the hardest heart can still feel pain. Behind the cold eyes of a mafia boss, there may be regret, loneliness, childhood wounds, or a deep fear of being betrayed. This does not excuse his actions, but it helps us understand that broken people often break others when they never learn how to heal. The educational value here is important. Pain should not become an excuse to hurt people. Instead, pain should become a reason to grow, to seek wisdom, and to choose a better path. For viewers, the lesson is not to admire the criminal lifestyle, but to understand its emptiness. The suits, cars, mansions, and power may look attractive from the outside, but behind them there is often fear, guilt, and loss. A life built on violence can never bring true happiness. A life built on lies can never bring true freedom. And a life built on fear can never create real love. In the end, the story of a mafia boss is really a warning. It warns us that every choice has a consequence. It warns us that money cannot buy peace. It warns us that fear cannot replace respect. It warns us that revenge cannot heal a wounded heart. Most importantly, it reminds us that the greatest power a person can have is not the power to control others, but the power to control themselves. The deepest lesson is simple but meaningful. Choose character over pride, love over control, truth over silence, and forgiveness over revenge. No matter how dark a person's past may be, change is possible when they are willing to face the truth. But the longer someone waits, the higher the price becomes. A mafia boss may win the streets, defeat his enemies, and build an empire, but if he loses his soul, he has lost everything. True strength is not found in violence. True strength is found in responsibility, compassion, humility, and the courage to become better before it is too late.